My fiancée started working late with her new attractive client, changed her workout clothes, and then posted a romantic photo with him saying she found someone better, so I called every wedding vendor and canceled everything. I'm a 29-year-old guy and my now ex-fiancée is 27. Our wedding was supposed to happen in 10 weeks. Everything was paid for and arranged. I thought we were solid. I work as an IT consultant for small businesses. She works as a marketing coordinator for a local real estate agency. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue party. She was always into taking photos and posting on Instagram, but I figured that was normal for someone her age. She had about 3,000 followers and posted regularly about our dates, her outfits, and food photos. About 2 months ago, her company hired a new real estate agent named Max, 32M. This guy was different from the usual agents they worked with. He specialized in luxury properties and had this whole personal brand thing going on. He had around 50,000 Instagram followers and was always posting videos of expensive houses, his workouts, and his lifestyle. Her boss assigned her to handle his social media marketing. The first week she worked with him, she came home excited about the collaboration. She said he had great ideas for content and understood social media better than most of their other agents. She started working longer hours, staying at the office until 8 or 9 p.m. for planning sessions and content creation. I asked her why they needed so many evening meetings, and she explained that Max preferred working later because he showed houses during normal business hours. 2 weeks into their working relationship, she started joining him for his workout videos. She saw it was important for her to understand his fitness content so she could market it properly. She began waking up at 6 a.m. to meet him at his gym before work. When I mentioned that seemed like a lot of extra effort, she said the company was paying her overtime and it was good experience for her career. Around the same time, she started changing her workout clothes. Instead of her usual loose t-shirts and leggings, she bought tight sports bras and shorts. When I commented on it, she said she needed to look professional in the background of Max's videos. She also started posting more fitness-related content on her own Instagram account. 3 weeks ago, she told me she needed to work late on a Friday night to finish a big presentation for Max. She said she would be home around midnight. I went to bed around 11:30 p.m. and woke up Saturday morning to find she never came home. Around 9 a.m., she texted me saying she had been exhausted after work and decided to sleep at her coworker Jasmine's apartment instead of driving home tired. I called Jasmine that afternoon to make sure my fiancé had gotten home safely. Jasmine said she hadn't seen her in over a month. When I confronted my fiancé about this, she got defensive and said she must have mixed up the names. She claimed she actually stayed with her college friend Reese who lived across town. I didn't push it further at the time. Last Saturday, I was at my buddy Kevin's house watching football. Around 7 p.m., I got a notification that my fiancé had posted a new Instagram story. I opened it and saw a photo of her and Max at an upscale restaurant downtown. His arm was around her shoulders, and they were both smiling at the camera. The caption said, "Finally found someone who matches my energy," with fire emojis. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. She had tagged me in the story. She wanted me to see it. This wasn't an accident or a moment of poor judgment. She deliberately made sure I would get a notification. I took screenshots and screen recordings immediately. Then I sat in Kevin's bathroom for 10 minutes staring at my phone. Kevin knocked on the door asking if I was okay. I showed him the story, and he just said, "Oh man, I'm sorry." I drove home and she wasn't there. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. I called Max's phone number, which I had from when she first started working with him. He answered on the second ring and said she was with him. He asked if I wanted to talk to her, and I hung up. That's when I decided I needed to act fast and smart instead of just sitting around waiting for her to come home and explain herself. I called my friend Derek, who works as a lawyer. Even though it was Saturday night, he answered. I sent him the screenshots and asked about our wedding contracts. He said the Instagram post could be considered evidence of breach of good faith, which might help us get refunds from vendors. He told me to start making calls first thing Monday morning. Next, I called her father Nicholas. He had contributed $8,000 toward the wedding expenses. I sent him the screenshots and told him the wedding was canceled. He tried to convince me to wait and talk to her first, but I said my decision was final. He asked me not to do anything rash over the weekend. But I had already decided I wasn't waiting. On Sunday morning, I started calling every wedding vendor. The venue manager said they normally don't give refunds this close to the date, but after I sent her the screenshots, she said they could refund 80% due to the circumstances. The photographer said he would refund the full amount because his wife would kill him if he kept money from someone in my situation. The caterer agreed to refund 60%. By Sunday afternoon, my phone was buzzing with calls and texts from her mother Mabel and her sister Jenny. I didn't answer any of them. She finally called me Sunday evening. She was crying and asking why I had sent the photo to her parents. I told her she tagged me in it, so obviously she wanted people to see it. She said the caption didn't mean what I thought it meant, and that Max had written it as a joke for social media engagement. I asked her where she slept Friday night, and she went quiet for about 30 seconds. Then she said she stayed at Max's place but nothing happened. She said they had been drinking after their work dinner and she didn't want to drive. I asked her why she lied about staying with Jasmine and then Reese. She said she panicked because she knew how it would look. I told her that someone who was ready to get married wouldn't panic about telling their fiancé the truth. I said the caption "finally found someone who matches my energy" was pretty clear, especially combined with her lying about where she spent the night. I told her our relationship was over and hung up. By Monday morning, most of our wedding vendors had called back confirming refunds. We ended up getting about 75% of our money back. Her father Nicholas called me Monday night asking if we could meet in person to talk about everything. I told him there was nothing to talk about. Tuesday evening, she showed up at my apartment crying. She said the whole thing was a misunderstanding and that she never meant to hurt me. She claimed Max had convinced her that the post would be good for both of their professional brands, and she didn't think about how I would interpret it. She said she realized she had made a huge mistake and wanted to fix things. I told her that someone who was ready to be married wouldn't prioritize their professional brand over their relationship. I said she had already made her choice when she tagged me in that post. She begged me to reconsider and said we could go to counseling. I told her to leave. Her sister Jenny called me Wednesday morning. She said I was throwing away 3 years over a misunderstanding. She claimed her sister was just trying to advance her career and got caught up in the social media aspect of her job. I told Jenny that her sister had lied about where she spent the night and then publicly posted about finding someone better. I said those weren't career moves, they were relationship-ending moves. Nicholas called me Wednesday night. He said families forgive each other and that everyone makes mistakes. I told him his daughter made her choice when she decided to humiliate me publicly while lying about her whereabouts. I said I wasn't interested in being anyone's second choice or safety net. It's been a week since then. I've blocked her on all social media and changed the locks on my apartment. The wedding venue confirmed our cancellation in writing. Most of our mutual friends have reached out to check on me. A few of them said they saw the Instagram story before she deleted it and couldn't believe she tagged me in it. I keep thinking about how deliberate that tag was. She didn't accidentally include me. She wanted me to see her with another man, with that caption. Maybe she thought I would fight for her or get jealous. Maybe she thought it would spark some kind of dramatic confrontation. Instead, I just quietly canceled our future together. I'm not sure why I'm posting this here. Maybe I need to know if I'm overreacting. Maybe I need to know if other people think that Instagram story was as intentional as it seemed to me. Update 1: A lot has happened since my original post, and I wanted to update everyone who gave me advice and support. First, thank you to everyone who confirmed that I wasn't overreacting. Reading your responses helped me realize that my gut instinct was right about how deliberate her actions were. The week after I posted, her mother Mabel started calling my mom directly. My mother called me confused about the whole situation because she had only heard my ex-fiancé's version of events. According to Mabel, I had misunderstood an innocent work photo and was being stubborn about not giving her daughter a second chance. I sent my mom the screenshots of the Instagram story and explained the timeline of lies. My mom called Mabel back and told her to stop contacting our family. Mabel apparently got upset and said my mom was being unreasonable. My mom told her that publicly humiliating someone's son while lying about sleeping at another man's house wasn't a misunderstanding. About 10 days after my original post, I found out why my ex-fiancé was so confident about posting that story. My buddy Kevin ran into Max at a bar downtown. Max was drunk and started bragging about how he had convinced her to post the photo. He said she had been worried about me finding out about their relationship, but he told her that confident people don't hide their connections. Kevin said Max claimed they had been sleeping together for 3 weeks before that Friday night. He said she had been planning to break up with me after the wedding because she didn't want to deal with canceling everything. Max told her that posting the story would force my hand and save her the trouble of having that conversation. When Kevin told me this, everything clicked into place. She hadn't been trying to make me jealous or start a fight. She had been trying to get me to end things so she wouldn't have to be the bad guy. She could tell everyone that I overreacted to an innocent photo instead of admitting she had been cheating and planning to leave me anyway. I called Derek, my lawyer friend, and told him what Kevin had learned. Derek said if I could get Max to repeat those statements, it might help with recovering more of our wedding expenses. He suggested I have Kevin reach out to Max again, but I decided against it. I had already gotten most of our money back, and I didn't want to give either of them any more of my time or energy. 2 weeks ago, I started getting friend requests on Facebook from people I didn't recognize. It took me a few days to realize they were all followers of Max's Instagram account. Apparently, my ex-fiancée had been posting stories about our breakup, painting herself as someone who had lost her soulmate over a misunderstanding. She was using our situation for content and sympathy. I found out about this from my cousin Sarah, who follows a lot of local influencers. Sarah said my ex-fiancée had posted several stories about heartbreak and moving forward after losing someone important. She was posting quotes about being misunderstood and not being appreciated. Max was liking and commenting on all of these posts. The worst part was that she had posted an old photo of us from last Christmas with a caption about how she wished she could go back and handle things differently. She tagged several of our mutual friends and family members in it. My Aunt Linda called me asking if we were getting back together because she saw the post and thought it meant we had worked things out. I made my Instagram account private and asked my family and friends to block her if she kept tagging them in posts about our relationship. My sister Reese posted a story saying that people who cheat and lie shouldn't get to control the narrative afterward. She didn't mention names, but everyone who knew our situation understood what she meant. Last week, I heard from my coworker that Max had been bragging at their gym about his new relationship. He was telling people that he had helped her realize she was settling for less than she deserved. He said she was much happier now that she was with someone who understood her ambitions. But here's where things got interesting. My coworker also mentioned that Max had been talking about how she was helping him get more engagement on his posts. He said having a girlfriend who understood marketing was great for his business. It sounded like he was using her for her professional skills just as much as she was using him for his social media following. This weekend, Kevin told me that Max had posted a story from an expensive restaurant with my ex-fiancée. The caption said something about investing in people who invest in you. But Kevin noticed that she was wearing the same dress she had worn to my company Christmas party last year. The dress I had bought for her. I realized that she probably couldn't afford to keep up with Max's lifestyle on her salary. She was likely spending money she didn't have to maintain the image of being with someone successful. The irony was that she had left someone who was financially stable for someone who expected her to spend money she didn't have. A few days ago, her sister Jenny called me one more time. She said her sister had been asking about me and wondering if I would be willing to talk. Jenny said she thought her sister was starting to realize she had made a mistake. I told Jenny that her sister had made her choice and would need to live with the consequences. I said I wasn't interested in being someone's backup plan. Jenny got quiet for a moment, then asked if I knew that she had quit her job last week. Apparently, working with Max had become complicated now that they were dating. Her boss had told her that their personal relationship was affecting their professional work, and it would be better if she found a position elsewhere. I told Jenny that her sister was an adult who made her own decisions, and I wasn't responsible for how those decisions turned out. Jenny said she understood and that she wouldn't call again. I've been focusing on moving forward with my own life. I found a new apartment closer to my office and signed a lease last week. I've been spending more time with friends and picked up some freelance work that I had turned down while planning the wedding. The strangest thing about all of this is how quiet my life has become. For 3 years, I was used to constant updates about her social media posts, her work drama, and her need to document everything we did together. Now I come home to silence, eat dinner without someone taking photos of the food, and watch TV without someone commenting on what would make a good Instagram story. I'm still processing everything that happened, but I'm clear about one thing. She didn't just cheat on me or lie to me. She tried to manipulate me into being the one to end our relationship so she could avoid taking responsibility for her choices. That level of calculation isn't something I can forgive or forget. Update 2: I wasn't planning to post another update, but some things have happened that I think are worth sharing, especially for anyone dealing with similar situations. About a month after my last update, I started hearing things through our mutual friends that made me realize the situation was more complicated than I had originally thought. My friend Jasmine, who works at the same real estate agency as my ex-fiancée, reached out to me. She said she felt bad about not telling me sooner, but she had information I should know. Jasmine told me that the company had been investigating Max for inappropriate conduct with clients and coworkers even before my ex-fiancée started working with him. According to Jasmine, Max had a pattern of getting involved with women in the office and then using those relationships to advance his business interests. He had dated 2 other marketing coordinators in the past year and a half. Both relationships ended when the women either quit or were transferred to different departments. Jasmine said my ex-fiancée wasn't his first victim, but she was the first one who was engaged to someone else when they started their affair. Jasmine had tried to warn her indirectly by mentioning Max's history with office relationships, but my ex-fiancée had dismissed it as workplace gossip. The company had apparently been building a case against Max for creating a hostile work environment. They were waiting for enough evidence to terminate him without facing a lawsuit. When my ex-fiancée quit her job to avoid the conflict between her personal and professional relationships, it actually hurt their case because they lost a potential witness. Jasmine also told me something that made me understand my ex-fiancée's behavior during those final weeks before everything fell apart. Max had been telling her that I was holding her back professionally and that she had more potential than she was using. He convinced her that successful people surround themselves with other successful people, and that staying with me was limiting her growth. This explained why she had been so focused on changing her image and posting different types of content. Max had made her believe that her current life wasn't good enough and that she needed to upgrade everything, including her relationship. But here's where the story gets even more twisted. Jasmine told me that Max had been planning to break up with my ex-fiancée once his business situation got resolved. He had been telling other people at the gym that he was just having fun and wasn't looking for anything serious. He apparently saw her as temporary entertainment while he dealt with the problems at work. 2 weeks after Jasmine told me this, Max got fired from the real estate agency. They found evidence that he had been using company resources to promote his personal brand and that he had violated their social media policies. They also discovered he had been charging clients extra fees that weren't authorized by the company. When Max lost his job, he also lost access to the luxury properties he had been featuring in his content. His Instagram engagement dropped significantly because he couldn't post the expensive house tours that his followers expected. Without the real estate content, his personal brand wasn't as appealing to sponsors and advertisers. My ex-fiancée apparently tried to help him maintain his online presence by suggesting marketing strategies and helping him create content. But without the budget for expensive restaurants, luxury cars, and high-end experiences, their posts became repetitive and boring. His follower count started declining. According to Kevin, who still sees Max occasionally at the gym, Max broke up with my ex-fiancée about 3 weeks ago. He told her that he needed to focus on rebuilding his career and couldn't handle the pressure of a serious relationship. Kevin said Max was back to pursuing other women and acting like his relationship with her had never happened. Last week, my sister Reese told me that my ex-fiancée had been asking our mutual friends about me. She wanted to know if I was dating anyone and whether I ever mentioned her. Reese said she looked like she had been crying a lot and had lost weight. She was apparently working at a different marketing firm now, making less money than her previous job. Reese said my ex-fiancée had asked her to pass along a message. She wanted me to know that she understood why I had ended our relationship and that she didn't blame me for not trusting her. She said she realized she had made terrible decisions and destroyed something good for something that turned out to be worthless. I told Reese not to pass along any messages in either direction. I said my ex-fiancée had made her choices and would need to deal with the consequences without involving me. Reese said she understood and that she had already told her I wasn't interested in communication. A few days later, I got a call from Nicholas, her father. He said his daughter had been struggling since Max ended their relationship and that she had been asking if he thought I would ever speak to her again. Nicholas said he told her that she had burned too many bridges and hurt too many people for anyone to trust her again. Nicholas apologized for pressuring me to reconsider during the immediate aftermath of our breakup. He said he hadn't understood how calculated her behavior had been until he saw the full pattern of lies and manipulation. He said he was embarrassed that he had raised someone who could treat another person so badly. I told Nicholas that I appreciated his apology, but that I didn't hold him responsible for his daughter's choices. I said she was an adult who had made deliberate decisions, and that her parents shouldn't blame themselves for her actions. Nicholas asked if I thought she had learned from what happened and if people could change after making mistakes like hers. I told him that learning and changing were possible, but that the people she had hurt weren't required to stick around to see if it happened. I said she would need to rebuild her life and her reputation with new people who didn't know about her past behavior. The conversation with Nicholas made me realize something important. My ex-fiancée hadn't just lost me when she chose Max. She had lost the respect of her family, her job, her financial stability, and eventually Max himself. She had traded everything real in her life for something that was never real to begin with. I'm not sharing this information because I want sympathy for her or because I think she deserves a second chance. I'm sharing it because I want people to understand that actions have consequences beyond the immediate damage they cause. Her decision to publicly humiliate me while lying about her whereabouts didn't just end our relationship. It revealed her character to everyone who knew us, and that revelation had lasting effects on every part of her life. I've been doing well these past few months. I finished the freelance projects I had taken on and got offered a permanent position with better pay and benefits. I moved into my new apartment and have been enjoying the peace and quiet. I've started dating again, nothing serious yet, but it's nice to spend time with people who communicate honestly and don't document every moment of their lives for social media. The most surprising thing about this whole experience has been realizing how much energy I had been spending on managing someone else's emotional needs and insecurities. I didn't realize how exhausting it had become to constantly reassure someone about their appearance, their career, their social media presence, and their relationships with other people. Living without that constant demand for validation has been incredibly freeing. Update 3: This will be my final update on this situation. I'm writing it because there have been some developments that I think close this chapter completely. About 6 weeks ago, I ran into my ex-fiancée at a grocery store near my old neighborhood. I was there visiting Kevin and stopped to pick up some snacks for the game we were watching. She was in the produce section and saw me before I saw her. She approached me and asked if we could talk for a few minutes. She looked different, thinner, tired, and she wasn't wearing any makeup. She was dressed in plain clothes instead of the carefully coordinated outfits she used to plan for every public appearance. I told her I didn't think we had anything to discuss. She said she understood why I felt that way, but that she wanted me to know she had learned from what happened. She said losing me had been the biggest mistake of her life and that she understood why I couldn't forgive her. She told me that Max had used her just like everyone had warned her he would. She said he had made her believe that their relationship was real while he was actually just using her for her marketing skills and for content for his social media. She said she realized too late that he had never cared about her as a person. I listened to what she said, but I didn't respond. After a few minutes of talking, she asked if I thought there was any chance we could try to be friends someday. I told her no. I said that what she had done wasn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate choice to humiliate me publicly while lying about where she was and what she was doing. I said those weren't the actions of someone who had been confused or manipulated. They were the actions of someone who had shown me exactly who she was. She started crying and said she knew she didn't deserve my forgiveness but that she hoped I could find some happiness. I told her I had already found happiness, and it came from removing dishonest people from my life. Then I walked away. Kevin said he saw her sitting in her car in the parking lot for about 20 minutes after I left. He said she was crying and talking on the phone with someone. He felt bad for her, but he agreed that I had handled the situation correctly. 2 weeks after that encounter, I heard through Jasmine that my ex-fiancée had moved back in with her parents. She had been struggling financially since taking the lower-paying job and couldn't afford her apartment anymore. Jasmine said she had been asking around about getting her old job back, but the company wasn't interested in rehiring her. Last month, Nicholas called me one final time. He said his daughter had asked him to reach out because she wanted to apologize properly for what she had done. She had written me a letter and wanted to know if I would read it. I told Nicholas that I wasn't interested in her apology letter and that I didn't want him to call me again about his daughter. I said I hoped she would find a way to rebuild her life, but that rebuilding needed to happen without any involvement from me. Nicholas said he understood and that he wouldn't contact me again. He thanked me for being respectful during our conversations and said he was sorry his daughter had put everyone through this situation. I appreciated his honesty, but I was glad to close that door permanently. A few weeks ago, Reese told me that my ex-fiancée had deactivated her Instagram account. Reese said our mutual friends had mentioned that she seemed to be staying off social media entirely. Reese thought this might be a sign that she was trying to change her priorities and focus on real life instead of online validation. I told Reese that I was glad to hear she might be making better choices, but that it didn't change anything between us. Reese said she understood and that she wouldn't bring up my ex-fiancée in our conversations anymore. Last week, I had dinner with Derek, my lawyer friend who helped me with the wedding cancellations. He asked how I was doing with everything and whether I ever regretted my decision to end the engagement. I told him I had never been more certain about a decision in my life. Derek said he had been impressed with how I handled the situation. He said most people would have either tried to fight for the relationship or gotten caught up in dramatic confrontations. He said by focusing on practical steps and protecting myself legally and financially, I had avoided making the situation worse and had given myself the best possible outcome. I told Derek that the most important thing I learned was to pay attention when people show you who they are. My ex-fiancée had shown me that she was willing to lie, cheat, and publicly humiliate me to get what she wanted. Once I saw that clearly, there was no reason to stick around and see what other damage she might do. Derek asked if I thought she had actually changed or if she was just dealing with the consequences of her actions. I said I didn't know and didn't care. I said that even if she had genuinely learned from what happened, she had burned too many bridges and hurt too many people for those lessons to matter to the people she had wronged. I'm doing well now. I've been dating someone new for about 2 months. Her name is Rachel, she's 28, and she works as a veterinarian. She's honest, straightforward, and doesn't feel the need to document every moment of her life for strangers on the internet. She communicates directly when she has concerns instead of playing games or creating drama. Rachel knows about my previous engagement and what happened. I told her the whole story early in our relationship because I wanted her to understand why I have zero tolerance for dishonesty or attention-seeking behavior. She said she appreciated my honesty and that she understood why those things would be deal-breakers for me. We're taking things slowly and focusing on building trust and compatibility. There's no pressure to rush into anything serious, and we're both comfortable with letting the relationship develop naturally. It's refreshing to be with someone who values the relationship itself more than how the relationship looks to other people. I've also been promoted at work and am making significantly more money than I was when I was engaged. I bought a house last month and have been enjoying having my own space and making my own decisions without having to consider anyone else's need for Instagram content or social media validation. The final lesson I learned from this whole experience is that some people view relationships as accessories to their personal brand rather than as genuine connections with other human beings. My ex-fiancée saw our relationship as part of her image, and when a shinier accessory became available, she traded up without considering the damage she would cause. I'm grateful that she showed me who she was before we got married rather than after. Getting divorced would have been much more complicated and expensive than canceling a wedding. Her decision to publicly humiliate me while lying about her whereabouts was actually a favor, even though she didn't intend it that way. I won't be posting any more updates about this situation. That chapter of my life is completely closed, and I'm focused on moving forward with people who share my values and treat relationships with the respect they deserve. For anyone dealing with similar situations, my advice is simple: believe people when they show you who they are, protect yourself legally and financially, and don't waste time trying to save relationships with people who have already decided to throw them away. Your future self will thank you for choosing your own self-respect over someone else's games. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My MILF falsely accused me of stealing her diamond ring and my husband believed her. Turns out she had sold it to cover her secret gambling debts and used me as a scapegoat. I, 28F, have been married to my husband Mark, 32M, for 3 years. We met at a friend's birthday party 5 years ago when I had just started my job as a marketing manager. Mark worked in the same building as an architect, and we kept running into each other in the elevator. After a few casual conversations, we started dating and things got serious pretty quickly. Mark's family, especially his mom Sandra, 57F, seemed really nice at first. Sandra had raised Mark and his sister Amy, 29F, alone after her husband died in a car accident when Mark was just 12. She never remarried and devoted her life to her kids. Amy works as a nurse at the local hospital and still lives with Sandra. I noticed early on that Amy was very possessive of her brother and always tried to include herself in our plans, but I didn't think much of it then. Before we got married, Sandra was very involved in our wedding planning. She had opinions about everything from the venue to my dress, but I tried to be understanding since Mark was her only son. Amy was less enthusiastic and made several comments about how we were rushing into marriage. She kept bringing up Mark's ex-girlfriends at family dinners, especially his high school girlfriend Jenny, but Mark always shut down those conversations. Last month, Sandra invited us over for Sunday dinner, which was pretty normal since we usually went there twice a month. She made her special pot roast and everything seemed fine at first. After dinner, while we were having coffee in the living room, Sandra started talking about her diamond ring. It was her engagement ring that her husband had given her, and she always said it was her most precious possession. She had shown it to me before, but this time she went into detail about how Mark's dad had saved for months to buy it. Later that evening, Sandra went upstairs to her room to get some old photo albums she wanted to show us. Suddenly, we heard her screaming. We all rushed upstairs to find her frantically going through her jewelry box. She turned to me with this wild look in her eyes and said her ring was missing. She claimed she had put it back in the box after showing it to me earlier, and now it was gone. Before I could even process what was happening, she started accusing me of stealing it. She said I was the only one who had shown so much interest in the ring's history and must have taken it when she wasn't looking. I was completely shocked and tried to defend myself, but then Amy jumped in. She claimed she had seen me lingering around the stairs near Sandra's room earlier, which was absolutely false. I had spent the entire evening in the living room except for one bathroom break. What hurt the most was Mark's reaction. Instead of defending me, he just stood there looking confused between his mother and me. Sandra was getting more hysterical by the minute and demanded I empty my purse and pockets right there. I felt so humiliated but did it anyway to prove my innocence. They found nothing, but Sandra insisted I must have hidden it somewhere in the house or slipped it to someone else. The situation got even worse when Sandra threatened to call the police if I didn't confess and return the ring. I was in tears at this point, and that's when Mark finally spoke up, but not to defend me. Instead, he suggested that maybe I should just apologize to calm his mother down, even if I hadn't taken it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own husband was asking me to apologize for something I hadn't done. I left their house that night feeling completely betrayed. Mark followed me home in his car while I drove mine. At home, instead of supporting me, he said I should have handled the situation better and not gotten so defensive because it made me look guilty. He kept saying his mom was just upset about losing something precious and I should try to understand her reaction. I told him I wasn't going to apologize for something I didn't do, and if he couldn't stand up for me against false accusations, maybe we needed to rethink our entire relationship. The next few days were absolute hell. Sandra apparently spent no time trying to find her ring but plenty of time spreading the story to their entire family. My phone was flooded with messages from Mark's relatives calling me a thief and saying they always knew I wasn't good enough for the family. Mark's cousins whom I'd only met at our wedding were messaging me demanding I confess. Mark started sleeping in the guest room, saying I was being unreasonable by not just apologizing to make peace. His sister Amy, who has a big social media following because of her fitness videos, started posting vague messages about how some people show their true colors eventually and you can never trust outsiders in a family. Everyone knew who she was talking about. I haven't spoken to Sandra or Amy since that day. Mark keeps trying to convince me to apologize, saying family peace is more important than pride. But I absolutely refuse to admit to something I didn't do just to make his family happy. My own parents and sister think I should stand my ground because apologizing would just make me look guilty and they'd never let me live it down. The whole situation has created a huge rift in our marriage. Mark and I barely talk anymore, and when we do, it always ends in an argument about the ring. He keeps saying I'm choosing my pride over his family's happiness. I've even suggested we look for the ring together, but Sandra refuses to let me back in her house, saying she doesn't want me to steal anything else. I feel like I'm losing my marriage over something I didn't even do. Mark seems more concerned about keeping his mom happy than standing by his wife. I'm starting to wonder if this is what the rest of my life will be like, always being considered an outsider in his family, never being trusted, and having my husband choose them over me every time. Update 1: These past few weeks have been absolute torture. Mark moved back to Sandra's house after our latest fight, which was probably our worst one yet. It all started when Sandra messaged Mark saying she had concrete proof that I stole her ring. According to her, she suddenly remembered she had installed security cameras in her house last year after a break-in attempt in their neighborhood. She claimed she finally checked the footage and saw me going into her room that evening. I was completely shocked because I hadn't gone anywhere near her room except when we all rushed up after hearing her scream about the missing ring. When Mark came home that evening, he looked really upset and wouldn't even make eye contact. He said his mom had shown him footage of someone with my height and build entering her room during the time we were all supposedly in the living room. I demanded to see this footage myself. It seemed very convenient that this evidence suddenly appeared 3 weeks after the incident. But Sandra refused to show it to me directly. She only showed it to Mark, and when he asked for a copy to show me, She claimed she had already deleted it because looking at it was too painful and triggered her anxiety about the theft. This made absolutely no sense to me. What kind of person deletes evidence that could help them recover a precious stolen item? When I pointed this out to Mark, he got defensive and accused me of calling his mother a liar. That's when things really exploded between us. The argument got heated quickly. I asked him why he was so quick to believe I was capable of stealing from his family. He started bringing up random incidents from the past, like how I had once joked about Sandra's expensive taste in jewelry, twisting it to make it sound like I had always been jealous of her things. When I got upset about him distorting my words, he finally revealed something that left me completely stunned. Sandra had apparently been against our marriage from the start. According to Mark, before our wedding, Sandra had actually tried multiple times to set him up with his high school girlfriend Jenny. She would invite Jenny to family events without telling Mark, hoping they would reconnect. Sandra thought Jenny, whose father owned a successful construction company, came from a better family and would make a more suitable wife for her son. Mark had kept this from me for all these years. He admitted that Sandra had never really accepted me but said he thought she would come around eventually if I just tried harder to fit in with their family. When I thought back to all the times Sandra had made subtle comments about my family's middle-class background or my job in marketing, everything started making sense. The whole ring situation wasn't about the ring at all, it was just another attempt to drive a wedge between us. When I told Mark this theory, he completely lost it. He accused me of being paranoid and said I was just trying to deflect attention from the evidence his mother had shown him. He said I was trying to make myself the victim when his mother was the one who had lost something precious. The fight got so bad that he ended up packing a bag and leaving to stay with Sandra. Before leaving, he gave me an ultimatum: either I apologize to his mother and return the ring, or he would file for separation. I stood my ground and told him he should think very carefully about choosing his mother's obvious lies over our marriage vows. He just shook his head and walked out. Since then, things have gotten even worse. Amy has been posting more stuff online, now openly calling me a gold digger. She wrote a long post about how she always knew I was after their family's money, conveniently forgetting that I make more money than Mark does. Some of Mark's cousins even contacted my workplace, telling my boss that they shouldn't trust me because I was a thief. Thankfully, my boss has known me for years and didn't take their accusations seriously. My sister Rachel suggested hiring a private investigator to look into this supposed security footage, but I don't see the point since Sandra conveniently deleted it. I'm starting to realize that maybe losing this marriage wouldn't be such a bad thing. If my husband can trust such an obvious lie from his mother over his wife of 3 years, what does that say about our relationship? The hardest part is seeing how quickly everything fell apart. 3 weeks ago, we were talking about starting a family, and now Mark won't even speak to me directly, he just sends short texts asking if I'm ready to apologize. I still can't believe how easily he believed I could do something like this. My friends keep telling me I'm better off without a husband who won't stand up for me, but it's hard to accept that my marriage might end over a ring I never even touched. The worst part is knowing that even if the ring mysteriously shows up tomorrow, the damage to our marriage might be irreparable. How do you come back from your husband believing you're capable of theft? Update 2: a surprising twist happened last week that changed everything. I was having coffee with my friend Lisa, who works as a nurse, when she mentioned something that made me freeze. She had recently visited her grandmother at Golden Oaks retirement home and learned that Sandra had been causing problems there. It turned out that Mark's grandmother, Sandra's mother, lived in the same facility. Lisa said she overheard Sandra having a heated argument with the staff about items supposedly missing from her mother's room. She remembered it clearly because Sandra was making a huge scene in the lobby, threatening to sue the facility over their negligence in protecting residents' belongings. This caught my attention immediately. I started investigating and discovered something disturbing. Sandra had filed 3 separate complaints in the past month alone about missing items from her mother's room: an expensive watch, a significant amount of cash, and a pearl necklace that had been in their family for generations. Each time, she had accused different staff members, but investigations found no evidence of theft. The retirement home management had actually issued her a formal warning about making false accusations against their staff. They had documentation of all these incidents, which struck me as very similar to what she had done to me with the ring. What was even more suspicious was that Mark had no idea about any of this. Sandra had been telling him his grandmother was doing great and actively discouraging him from visiting her. She always had excuses: his grandmother was tired, she was at medical appointments, or she was having a bad day. Mark hadn't seen his grandmother in almost 4 months because of these excuses. After careful consideration, I decided to anonymously tip off Mark about the situation at Golden Oaks. He finally visited his grandmother and uncovered the truth. Sandra had been systematically taking her mother's jewelry and valuables, claiming she was safe keeping them at home. His grandmother was devastated when she found out, saying she had been missing several family heirlooms but thought she was just becoming forgetful. When Mark confronted Sandra about this pattern of missing items, she finally broke down. She admitted she had been secretly gambling online for over a year and had accumulated massive debts. She had sold most of her mother's jewelry, including her own diamond ring, to cover her losses. The whole theft accusation against me was a desperate attempt to cover her tracks when she thought people might start asking questions about the missing ring. She chose me as her scapegoat because she never wanted Mark to marry me in the first place. She thought accusing me would serve two purposes: covering up her theft and breaking up our marriage. Amy knew about the gambling problem all along but helped cover it up because Sandra had been paying off her credit card debt in exchange for her silence. Mark came to our house yesterday, completely destroyed. He couldn't stop apologizing for not believing me. He said he had moved out of Sandra's house and gotten his own apartment because he needed space to process everything. He found out that Amy had even helped Sandra set up online gambling accounts and had been deleting her browser history to hide it from Mark. I listened to his apologies but told him I needed time to think. The fact that he so easily believed I could steal from his family and sided with them against me showed a fundamental lack of trust in our relationship. He's been constantly calling and texting, begging for another chance, but I've asked him to give me space to process everything. Sandra sent me a long text message apologizing for her accusations, trying to blame it all on her gambling addiction and depression after her husband's death. Amy deleted all her social media posts about me but hasn't had the courage to apologize directly. All those relatives who called me a thief have gone mysteriously quiet. I'm still trying to decide what to do about my marriage. On one hand, I love Mark and understand he was manipulated by his family. On the other hand, his complete lack of trust in me and failure to stand by my side when I needed him most showed me a side of him I'm not sure I can forget. Update 3: After a lot of thinking and several long conversations with my family, I finally filed for divorce. The decision wasn't easy, but I realized I couldn't stay in a marriage where trust had been broken so fundamentally. Mark made numerous attempts to reconcile, sent flowers to my workplace every week, wrote long emails apologizing, and even suggested marriage counseling. But I couldn't get past how easily he had believed I was capable of stealing from his mother. Sandra's situation changed significantly after her gambling addiction came to light. She had to sell her house to repay what she had taken from Mark's grandmother and is now living with Amy in a small apartment. She joined Gamblers Anonymous and claims to be 6 months clean. Mark's grandmother moved in with her other daughter in Florida and is doing much better now. She actually reached out to me last month with a heartfelt apology, even though none of this was her fault. She said she felt terrible about what her daughter had done to my marriage. The divorce proceedings went smoother than expected. Mark didn't contest anything and agreed to all my terms, including selling our house and splitting the proceeds. I think his guilt over not believing me made him more agreeable. My lawyer said it was one of the easiest divorces she'd ever handled. Amy tried reaching out through a mutual friend first, then sent a long social media message apologizing for supporting her mother's lies and posting those horrible things about me. She claimed she was caught between protecting her mother and doing the right thing. I blocked her without responding. Some actions can't be undone with just an apology. My life has taken a completely different direction since then. I got promoted to senior marketing director, which required relocating to Chicago. The distance has been healing. My sister Rachel moved in with me temporarily to help with the transition, and having her around has made everything easier. Last week, I ran into Jenny, Mark's high school girlfriend, at a coffee shop in Chicago, where she was visiting for business. The conversation was eye-opening. Turns out Sandra had lied about trying to set them up too. Jenny had been happily married for 7 years with 3 kids and had never been interested in reconnecting with Mark. She said she only attended those family events because Sandra had told her Mark specifically requested her presence, which was another lie. Mark sent one final email last week. He wrote about how therapy had helped him understand his unhealthy relationship with his mother and how deeply he regretted not trusting me. He said losing me was the biggest mistake of his life and he would always regret choosing his mother's lies over our marriage. I read the email but didn't respond. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. I'm not dating yet, though my friends keep trying to set me up. I'm focusing on my new job and finally doing things I always wanted to do but somehow never made time for. I joined a hiking group and started taking photography classes. For the first time in months, I feel at peace with my decision. Sandra still sends occasional messages through different numbers since I blocked her original one. She's trying to make amends, claiming the gambling addiction made her do terrible things. I delete these messages without reading them. Amy has finally stopped trying to contact me after I threatened legal action for harassment. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Mark had believed me from the start, but I try not to dwell on it. This experience taught me that I deserve someone who will trust me unconditionally and stand by my side no matter what their family says. Sometimes walking away is better than trying to fix something that was broken by betrayal.